This is Gareth Southgate, and this is the Three Lions podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Three Lions podcast. My name is Russell Osborne, and this is where we take a look at our national football team in an audio podcast way. Thanks for all your recent comments, always nice to hear from you. And the recent episode where we spoke with England fan Daniel Payne about his first England away game, Croatia, in 2008. Well, that went down really well. And it's still available to listen to should you have not heard it yet. You can listen to it either at threelionspodcast.com or it's available on all the usual platforms, iTunes, Spotify, Amazon Music, we're on there as well, SoundCloud too. So stay subscribed for those, we've got more of those ready to go. But this time we're previewing the 3 home games we have coming up. Wales, Belgium and Denmark, all in the space of 6 days. Wales is a friendly, but as it's a home nation opposition, it's never really just a friendly. Belgium and Denmark are Nations League games, so equally as important. And of course, these games follow the victory in Iceland and the draw in Denmark last month. And Belgium, currently top Group 2 League A, or is it League A Group 2? Either way, after a 2-0 win against Denmark and a 5-1 victory over Iceland. That was a game where Iceland took the lead, in fact, in that one. So it's safe to say a win at Wembley against them is almost essential if we've got visions of winning the league and qualifying for those finals once again. And speaking of Wembley, it'll be 330 days since we last played there. Remember that 7-0 victory over Montenegro? The one that secured our path to the Euros? Seems such a long time ago now. That was the one where Harry Kane got a hat-trick, Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain opened the scoring, Marcus Rashford and Tammy Abraham all scored. They also featured an own goal too. Sadly though, it'll all be behind closed doors, as the current guidelines mean we're not able to attend. And I'm pretty sure that this will be the first time a home game has been like this. Gutting. Absolutely gutting. Now in the other fixtures in our group, match day 3, Iceland played Denmark at home when we play Belgium. And then match day 4, whilst we're entertaining Denmark, Iceland host Belgium. And incidentally, Iceland have got a very important game before they play Denmark and Belgium. Because on the 8th of October, the Euro 2020 playoffs begin, or the 2021, next year's Euros, basically, where they play Romania at home. And this is on the same night that Scotland play Israel, Northern Ireland go to Bosnia and Herzegovina, and of course we play Wales. It's been a while since we've had this many games in quick succession, especially at home. Probably the Russia World Cup. I could get used to this. Although it could be argued that if we weren't in this current coronavirus predicament, then we wouldn't have 3 games. So careful what you wish for there, Russell. And as always, we'll be speaking with people who know a little more than I do about the opposition. But first, Gareth Southgate released his squad on Thursday, the 1st of October. And as always, let's take a look through it. So as we know, that squad last month certainly caused some headlines. And if you remember, no left-sided players. Harry Maguire was selected, then dropped because of his Mykonos mischief. God, I'm sounding like the sun there. Let's just say his Greek incident. Marcus Rashford and Harry Winks pulled out, and there were some first call-ups for Phil Foden and Mason Greenwood, who were then sent home shortly after the Iceland game. Danny Ings got a call-up but only played 20-odd minutes, and Leeds United's Calvin Phillips kept his head down and played quite well in Copenhagen. James Ward-Prowse returned too. And after the pull-outs, Gareth called in Arsenal's Ainsley Maitland-Niles, Wolves' Connor Cody, and finally gave in to Jack Grealish. All in all, it's best forgotten. So let's hope this time all the news is on the pitch. 30 names announced, which, bearing in mind we have 3 games, I guess is no real surprise. And a little thing, they've released them in positional order rather than alphabetical on social media when they put the squad out. Now the major news, I guess, is Harry Maguire returns, as does Ben Chilwell, Harry Winks, Jordan Henderson and Marcus Rashford too. Connor Cody, Calvin Phillips, Ainsley Maitland-Niles and Jack Grealish retain their spots. And despite getting sent off against Iceland, Kyle Walker is back in. Unsurprisingly, Phil Foden and Mason Greenwood are omitted. And in their place, Gareth has given call-ups to Arsenal's Bukayo Saka, Everton's Dominic Calvert-Lewin and Leicester's Harvey Barnes, who have all come through the under-21 pathway. Dominic Calvert-Lewin with 17 caps and 7 goals, so he fully deserves this opportunity, given the fact he's been on fire recently. 8 goals in 5 games, including 2 hat-tricks. So the full squad is as follows, and I'll point this out now, as I'm sure some will drop out, but I'm recording this on the day of the announcement. So in goal we have 3 keepers, Dean Henderson, Jordan Pickford and Nick Pope. Defenders, Trent Alexander-Arnold, Ben Chilwell, Connor Cody, Eric Dyer. Let's hope he doesn't have any more on the pitch, off the pitch incidents. Joe Gomez, Michael Keane, Harry Maguire, Ainsley Maitland-Niles, Tyrone Mings, Bukayo Saka, who's actually the youngest of the 30 at 19 years old, Kieran Trippier from Atletico Madrid, and as we mentioned, Kyle Walker, despite getting sent off against Iceland, is back, and he's in fact the oldest of the 30. So he's got a lot of responsibility there, hasn't he? In midfield, Jordan Henderson, Mason Mount, Calvin Phillips, Declan Rice, West Ham United, James Ward-Prowse of Southampton, Harry Winks is there as well, and then up front, Tammy Abraham, Harvey Barnes of Leicester City, and we mentioned Dominic Calvert-Lewin, Jack Grealish gets another chance to impress, Danny Ings, who knows where the goal is, Harry Kane, of course, captain, Marcus Rashford, Jadon Sancho, and Raheem Sterling. Personally, I'd expect the 3 new boys to get some time against Wales. Perhaps not a full 90, but just a chance to show Gareth how they can integrate in. And it is a squad made up of 3 from Man United, Everton, Liverpool, Chelsea and Tottenham, 2 from Arsenal, Aston Villa, Southampton, Manchester City, and 1 from Burnley, Wolves, Atletico Madrid, Leeds, West Ham, Leicester and Borussia Dortmund. Average age of 24.6. Out of the 30, it's a total caps of 456, and it's got 67 goals within it. Hopefully, those 30 players is enough for us to get past Wales and 6 home points against Belgium and Denmark. So first up on Thursday the 8th of October is Wales at home. Kickoff is at 8 o'clock and it's going to be on ITV. Now, by all accounts, this match came about after Gareth Southgate and Ryan Giggs were both doing some work for the sponsor BT, who sponsor both sides. Apparently, Giggs broached the subject of the game and Gareth took him up on it. There you go. It's going to be match 103 between the 2 sides. England have won 67, lost 14, and there have been 21 draws. Now, the first match between these 2 was back in 1879, which England won 2-1. And of course, the last time we met was that 2-1 victory in Lens during Euro 2016. Pretty much the only highlight of that tournament for us. And the last time Wales won was back in 1984 when a Mark Hughes goal separated the 2 sides. Now, as we say, the first match for England coming up is against Wales. And I'm very pleased to be joined by Rich Roberts from the Pale Droid podcast. Rich, hello there.
Hello, yeah, happy to be here from Podcast Pale Droid. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. I'm glad I got the pronunciation of that right.
It was good. It was really good. Well done.
Oh, whereabouts are we talking to you from?
I'm in Cardiff.
So the heart of Wales, the heartbeat of Wales, I guess. Is that right? Was that how people would refer to it?
Yeah.
Good stuff. I mean, how long has Pale Droid been going for?
Well, we started it. We're actually coming up to our 100th episode. I think the next one's 98, and then we'll only be a couple away from 100. It's been going a few years now. We kind of started just before the good times kicked in, which is really amazing because it means we could never be classified as glory hunters because we were around before things got really good. But also we didn't have to suffer too long doing the podcast before the fruits of the whole organisation's labours came to bear. So yeah, it's been a while. Some ups, mainly ups, a couple of downs, but it's been a really awesome period
Good
for
stuff.
us to be commenting on football. Yeah.
Good. Well, I guess this has all come about with the Chris Coleman in charge and now Ryan Giggs in charge, I guess. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the work had gone in before Coleman, but I think Coleman was the one who, after what happened with Gary Speed, Coleman was the guy who just brought that, I think, a little bit of extra toughness to our play, because we had a lot of young players at the time who had been sort of brought in by Toshak, arguably because they had to be brought in. We didn't have the player base. Toshak developed them, and then Speed did some work, and then Coleman came in and took it to the next level. But now under Giggs, I think we've got an even better group, and we'll be looking to really do something in the Euros for sure next summer. Fingers crossed.
That's right, because you're in the Euros for next year, much like ourselves. You're up against Switzerland, Turkey, and Italy, but that's obviously a little way off. But you're unbeaten in 8 games at the moment, aren't you? So things are obviously going well.
Yeah, I mean, Ryan Giggs has had he had a difficult start, I think, and he was coming in where the fans were kind of, I would say, maybe 70-30 against his appointment, I would say.
Wow.
So he's had work to do, but to be absolutely kind of clear about it, I was ambivalent. I was neither pro or against him coming in. He's done a really fantastic job, and he has undoubtedly, I think, taken us on a level. I mean, granted, he's got some really, really brilliant young players coming through. But the way he's generated, like one of Coleman's flaws would have been he stuck to his favourites too much. Whereas I think Ryan Giggs is someone who's made it very clear there aren't really any favourites, and you have to be playing and playing well, and no spot is secure. So yeah, it's been a really brilliant, and yeah, of course, we're 8 games unbeaten, and we want to keep that run going if we can do.
Yeah, and I know you recently beat, was it Finland and Bulgaria, both with a couple of late goals?
Yeah, we did. And I mean, this was kind of, and we had players missing in both of those games, and Bale wasn't at full fitness. But we got 2 results, 2 clean sheets, without playing anywhere near our best kind of dynamic attacking football. So that is really, really, really good. And of course, to go away to Finland and win 1-0, Finland are a good team in good form. And we beat them, and that's superb. It was a somewhat disappointing game against Bulgaria, but again, the fact is Bulgaria came to Cardiff with no ambition beyond keeping the 0 and not losing to us. So again, that's another sign of how far we've come.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned the main man there. Of course, Gareth Bale's come back to England. He's come back to Tottenham. He's yet to be used by Mourinho. And just looking at the squad that Ryan Giggs has announced, he hasn't even included him in that. How has that gone down? And who's going to fill the space of Gareth Bale?
Well, I mean, that's fine. I mean, he was injured on international duty with us last time, and is only just sort of kind of returning to training now. So it wouldn't make any sense to bring him back and risk him. I mean, he's simply not ready. He's doing some training with Tottenham, and the idea will be to get him fit. And then his whole season now, of course, is to do well with Tottenham. But really, the reason for the move was for the Euros. So that's absolutely fine. In terms of taking his place, it's interesting. We've got Brooks back in the squad. He's had a terrible time with injuries, but he's an absolutely fantastic player who I think potentially could still move. I think Bournemouth are being quite difficult with his asking price, but he's someone who needs to be playing, in the EPL or in one of the big leagues for sure. So Brooks would be the one we'd be looking to kind of slot in that kind of forward 3 or 4 and take Bale's place, I would imagine. But that being said, we've got other people as well. I think particularly for the England game, which is the least important of the 3 by some distance, because of us doing so well in the Nations League. Giggs will probably look to rotate and give people a chance. So maybe Harry Wilson might come back in, Rabi Matondo perhaps, and Robson Kanu as well. So yeah, we've got some nice options. Any team in the world is going to miss Gareth Bale. But the whole point is now just to build that depth without our best players if they're not available on a particular game.
Yeah, I mean, you said there the least important game, and I understand what you mean, but obviously it's a home nations game. How do Welsh people look at the England fixture in general? I know you haven't got the best record against England, and I'm not here to gloat or anything like that, but how does it go down in general?
I mean, I think what I would say is in terms of Wales fans who follow the Welsh national team, we're not in the slightest bit interested in what England are doing.
Yeah.
Of course, we want to beat them like we want to beat any team, and it's perfectly reasonable and natural. You want to beat the teams that are geographically close to you. That's the whole reason and point of international football, really, isn't it? But in terms of kind of, it's not really very interesting to us. Our kind of goals are qualifying for major tournaments, going on unbeaten runs, and just playing the best football we can do. So yeah, I mean, it would be more of a media kind of creation than anything else, I would say. England can do what they want to do. They've got some interesting kind of players, I guess. But yeah, it's not super interesting to us, to be honest.
No, fair enough. It's always good to get different perspectives on these different games. Of course, the last meeting was back at Euro 2016, which we won. Did you go to that game?
No, I didn't go. I was watching with I think she was 18 months old daughter at the time. I was that was an interesting one. And yeah, I mean it was an awful way to lose that game so late. Although, if you can, our tournament experience, I would suggest, was somewhat more positive than yours.
I was going to say you had the last laugh, really, didn't you?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it was an amazing tournament overall, and I think it was one of the talking about how Giggs is building this really great strength and depth now. In the semi-final against Portugal, we were missing Aaron Ramsey and Ben Davis, behind Bale, arguably our 2 most important players, and that cost us badly in that semi-final. So there's always an element where we would think, what would have happened had those 2 been playing? Because Portugal were good, but they weren't incredible. So looking kind of now, it's about getting as many players as possible playing well. Hopefully, we'll be back in a semi-final in the next Euros with more depth, and hopefully you guys can avoid another Iceland.
Oh yeah, that would be nice. But yeah, as I say, like, you're hoping for a positive thing next year. You've got Switzerland, Turkey, and Italy. How do you think you would fare up against those?
Oh well, I mean, it would be failure to not qualify from that group. That's just simple. Italy is clearly historically it's a difficult game, and and Italy at their worst are still a reasonable team. I guess we'll see closer to the time how they're faring and so on. But yeah, absolutely, we'll be looking to progress very, very deep into that tournament. Absolutely. A lot of things are going to depend on how some of our players develop over the season, because we have got a young team. But if we just assume that the development is as expected, then yeah, we'd be looking to go very, very deep into that tournament.
Well, she'll be watching out for you guys on that, and likewise the Nations League games as well. But let's just bring it back round into the circle. If I was to ask you for a prediction at the Wembley game, would you be open to giving me something on that?
Yeah, I would say we'll win 2-0.
But it's the least important game, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, 2-0, 3-0, 4-0, it does not matter. But yeah, certainly the least important. But let's just hope for some good quality football.
Yeah, no, great stuff. Rich, thank you very much. And once again, the Pale Droid podcast, should anyone want to tune in, where can they find you on that?
Yeah, look us up on Twitter. There'll be plenty of links and stuff on there. It's on all the usual platforms, iTunes and so on. So yeah, definitely anyone should check it out if they like Welsh football.
Great stuff. And is it in Welsh or in English?
It's in English.
It's in English. There you go. So no excuse then, people.
No,
Rich,
absolutely.
thank you very much.
Cool.
Now, next up is Belgium on the 11th of October. Kickoff 5 p.m. UK time. The last time we played each other was back in the 2018 World Cup. And in fact, we actually played them twice, something that doesn't actually happen too often. It was the third and fourth place where we lost 2-0 in St. Petersburg, and a game that was Phil Jones's last England cap, if you want a little stat on that. But before that, we met in Kaliningrad, a game I remember taking an overnight bus journey from Lithuania to. Lost that one as well, 1-0. That was the last of our group games after we'd beaten Panama and Tunisia. Back then, we spoke with John Chapman from the website belgofoot.be. I'm pleased to say he's back with us and joined us again. Hello, John.
Hello, Russell.
How are you?
Good to be back.
Good to have you back. Are you well?
Yeah, I'm fine, thanks. Yeah.
Good stuff. Now, Belgian football, it's, top of the pile, aren't they, at the moment?
Well, top of the pile, if you believe those rankings, I suppose. But yeah, top of the pile. They're certainly on a good run. They've won the last 13 games, I think. So it's not too bad.
No, not at all. Am I right in saying that when Roberto Martinez was appointed back in 2016, he wasn't really everyone's sort of favourite pick, was he? And he didn't get off to the best start?
No, I think that's right. It was a bit of a surprise because he hadn't got a lot of international. Well, he has now, I suppose. He hadn't got a lot of international experience. In fact, I went to his first game when they played Spain, and Spain destroyed them. David Silva ran the game, and I don't think Belgium really got a kick. But yeah, he's done the business, if you like. You know, they had a pretty good World Cup. You know, some said they should have won it. And they've had great results for a long time now.
So are the Belgian people changing their tune now? Yes,
I would say yes, definitely. There's nobody complaining about Martinez anymore. He got an extended contract. He's living in Waterloo. He doesn't seem to be speaking French or Dutch. All his press conferences are in English.
Okay.
Some people might object to that, I suppose.
Although it does make it a little easier for the likes of you and I to understand what he's talking about.
Well, my Spanish isn't too good, so you're right there.
I mean, the Nations League, obviously you're top of that at the moment. How's the Nations League being spoken about in Belgium?
I wouldn't say it's headline news, probably less of a fixture that people talk about compared to the Euros. You know, I don't think it's got that importance yet. But international matches, the Belgians get behind the team. Although, of course, you know, with the fans not really in the stadiums at the moment, it's not quite the same. But yeah, I think it's treated obviously better than friendlies.
Yes, yeah, I think that's how everyone sees it. I know they've got the Ivory Coast at home, then they come to England, and then they play Iceland away. And Martinez has picked a fairly big squad to look at all of these players, hasn't he?
Well, he's picked a squad of 32, which is it's the first time I've known a squad that big. He said the reasons were because they've got 3 games. and they don't really want to play players for all 3 games. Probably no player will play 3 games. So they brought in quite a few youngsters. 3 of them, in fact, will only be with the squad for the Ivory Coast game, and then they'll drop into the under-21s because they've got quite important games. But yeah, he's brought in quite a few players, quite a few young players on the fringes. I think one of the reasons is, apart from the 3 games, is that Belgium have an aging squad.
Right.
This was talked about in the media last week, and I think Romelu Lukaku was actually interviewed by the Times, and he mentioned it, that one of his fears, if you like, was that a lot of players would be retiring, maybe after the Euros, because they've almost lost a whole team. People talked about the golden generation. They've lost Fellaini, Dembele, Company, Nangola. They're no longer involved. And then people like Mertens, Alderweireld, Vertonghen, Witsel, they're all over 30, So
right. Okay.
It's an aging squad.
Yeah. It happens in every squad and nation, doesn't it, where these players come through in waves. So it's a case now of nurturing that under-21s and the younger sides and bringing them through in the way that they have done recently to get to that World Cup semi-final and be the good team that they are, the number 1 team.
Exactly.
There's certainly a lot of players that we recognise here that play in the Premier League. You mentioned Toby Alderweireld of Spurs. We've got obviously Kevin De Bruyne, obviously of Manchester City, Tielemans at Leicester, Benteke at Palace, Batshuayi at Palace. I didn't realise actually Divock Origi, forward at Liverpool. But there's obviously worldwide names. Our goalkeeper Courtois at Real Madrid, Eden Hazard at Real Madrid, and you mentioned Lukaku as well. So there's still these exceptional players, aren't there? If those players that I mentioned sort of do retire, which is possible, I suppose, they've still got a reasonable team. You could build it around De Bruyne, Eden Hazard, Tielemans, Lukaku. I would say those would be the main 4, if you like. And they've got quite a few reasonable midfield players and attackers. But defence, in the future is the big question mark. They've lost, say they lose Alderweireld, Vertonghen, Vermaelen, Company, say they've all gone. It's tough to replace those guys, and they haven't really got a lot coming through. They've got Denayer, who's not bad at Lyon, Boyata at Hertha Berlin, Meunier, I suppose, in Dortmund, Borussia. But, I think not quite the same names, if you like. Not yet, anyway.
Not yet.
So you'll be coming to Wembley for the game on the 11th of October. Despite England being at home, I would imagine Belgium must feel that they are the favourites for that game.
Oof.
Or not, maybe.
I don't think Belgians are not that as a race. They're not like the Dutch,
Right.
The Dutch would say, "Yeah, we're going to win everything." The Belgians never seem to say that. They always say, "No, not sure." Wembley, England, it's going to be a tough one. They would never say they're favourites. Also, another point I haven't mentioned is that Eden Hazard and Thorgan Hazard are both out.
Are they really?
They both got thigh problems, and they're both out.
So is that after the squad was announced?
Well, Thorgan Hazard was out before the squad was announced, so he was never in. Martinez included Eden Hazard, and I think on the same day, to be honest, Real Madrid announced that he now had a thigh injury, and he would be out for another 3 weeks.
Ah, well, that's sort of memories of Harry Maguire there.
Harry Maguire? What's that?
Well, he was announced on the same day, and then obviously had his incident in Greece and was pulled out on the same day. Obviously, not the same standard as player.
Okay.
No.
Yeah, so it does leave. Thorgan Hazard is a good player nowadays as well, and obviously Eden Hazard needs no introduction.
No.
But they're both left-sided, and it does leave Belgium a bit weak on the left there. So, and they're going to miss them. So that might make a difference.
Oh, well, we shall. Maybe we can take advantage from an England point of view at home, and then they may return in time for that return leg in November, which I'm sure we'll talk about.
Yeah, in theory they'll both be back, but Eden Hazard in particular hasn't played at all.
Well, just tell us a little bit more about Belgofoot, the website that you put together.
What do you want to know?
How long has that been going?
Well, I can tell you a bit more about me. I've been writing about Belgian football since, I think, 1999.
Right, so you were there before the good times.
Which is quite a while. Yeah, I saw the good times arrive, and then some might say wane a little bit. But yeah, I was there before. Yeah. In a sense, that's how I made my name, if I have one, because I had a name once. I had a lot of followers on Twitter, mainly because of the massive interest in the Premier League of people like Kevin De Bruyne, Eden Hazard, and Thibaut Courtois, who were all playing, two of them were playing in Belgium, one was playing in France. And there was very little knowledge about those guys. And that's where I filled in a hole. So that was good. Yeah, it was good. I watched a lot of Belgian games in those days. And I've seen a lot of the Belgian international team. But you're
of English birth, though, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm from Manchester, from the Old Trafford end. But a bit of detail.
And so, I mean, if you were to put a prediction on this game between England and Belgium, where would you see that going?
I would say a draw.
Right.
At Wembley, and I think Belgium might win the return. So that's what I'd go for at the moment.
I think it's going to come down to that last game, possibly between Belgium and England over in. That'll be played in Brussels, I believe, wasn't it?
Yeah, although 95% of the matches are played in Brussels. Yeah, exactly. One thing about Belgium, I've seen the last two Manchester City games. And Kevin De Bruyne doesn't look very happy. He has these periods where he doesn't look particularly happy.
Manchester
He's
City.
He's just had a third child, so maybe he's having some late nights.
Maybe. I mean, Manchester City haven't had the best of starts to the Premier League, have they? So maybe that's having an effect on him.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
We shall see.
What's your feeling about the game? The result?
I think. After the Iceland and the Denmark games, which weren't particularly exciting, and sort of neither not productive, but could have been approached in a better way, I think that these games. I mean, we've got Belgium before we play Denmark, and Wales before we play Belgium. So I'm thinking that it'll experiment a little with Wales, and then go full out against Belgium, knowing that we've got to get ideally a win against Belgium, and I think if we can get at the Belgians early and score early, then I think we stand a chance. But I think being the two teams that they are, you could be right with a draw. I'd like to think that England will win, but I'm fully aware of how good Belgium are.
Yeah, I think they will miss Eden Hazard this time, although they have got results in the past without him and without De Bruyne. But probably England, England are a reasonable side these days, I think. So
yeah,
it could be a tough one.
Yeah, that would certainly be interesting.
It'd be interesting, certainly. And I look forward to discussing it with you before the next game.
Yes, no, that'd be great. John, thank you very much.
No problem, Russell. Good to talk to you.
Claus from Danish Footy last month, and I'm pleased to say he's back with us again. Hello, Claus.
Hello, Russell. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm well.
Good stuff. How's Copenhagen today?
It's been quite nice, actually. Warm weather and sun is out earlier today. So
lovely.
It's quite nice.
Well, after we previously spoke on the previous podcast, I actually spoke with some England fans who went out to Copenhagen and watched the game in some bars there, as I thought there would be a few. Did you encounter any England fans?
Well, normally I don't work in Copenhagen. I work outside Copenhagen. But I saw on the telly that there were some in some of the Irish bars we have here in Copenhagen. So, I mean, that's the point about being a football fan, isn't it? Is to go to away venues and well, not venues, but the away cities and see for yourself. But I saw on the television that there were some English fans who took the trip over, even though there's COVID-19 and all that.
Yeah, no, they done well. I mean, I don't know if you're aware, we even had a fan who went to Iceland as well and isolated for the best part of 10 days and then watched the game.
Okay, that's dedication, isn't it?
It is very much, yeah. I take my hat off to him. So, I mean, that game last month, how was it received in Denmark?
Well, to be quite honest, I think that people saw it as a bit of a drag. I mean, there wasn't too much going on, and as I saw it, it was a game of two halves, really. I think that we were very good in the first half, and then we started to tire, and then you actually pretty much took over from there, I would say. So, good first half from us. Should have done more of the chances we got, and then the second half, what can you say? We were hitting on the brakes sometimes, and you guys started to take over, and so that's how I see it. I think it was okay, but it was not the best match I've ever seen.
Were you happy with the point, though?
Considering how the match dragged through, I would say yeah. I think it was actually also, if you consider the chances, I mean, there were two great chances, wasn't there? There was one for Eriksson where he pings it way over the bar, and then the last one for Harry Kane where I think it was on the line really much. And then that was pretty much it, I would say. Yeah. And then there were some midfield battles, but that was it really. I don't think it was a match that you will keep the highlights on for another year or something.
No, I think I've probably erased it already. I mean, the perspective from England was that I think we kind of spoiled the game, really, with Gareth's defensive sort of selection. He came under a lot of scrutiny here with perhaps being a little bit defensive. And personally, I think Denmark deserved more credit than they got. And you mentioned that Eriksson chance towards the end. If they'd have scored that, then I think we really would have struggled. But, I mean, did England get a bit of a media battering in Denmark because of the sort of the defensive lineup we put out?
Yeah, I was also quite surprised when I saw the lineup, especially the two midfielders you had. I mean, the game totally changed when you put on Jack Grealish from Aston Villa. Yep. I mean, he pretty much transformed your attack and the how you combine from the midfield onto the attack from there. So I think that in Denmark, the media didn't actually take that much notice of this because they also saw the match and they could see it was pretty much a match where both sides were happy with the point, I would say, because you came from Iceland where you didn't perhaps play your best football. I can say that hopefully. Yeah. And we came from Belgium where we lost. So we needed at least a point there. And I think that considering this was Kasper Hjulmand's, our head coach, second match in charge, I think he was pretty much happy to get the draw because at the end he also made some substitutions that were defensive, to say the least. I mean, he took up an attacker to put on a right back. I mean, if you do that, it pretty much seals the deal, isn't it? So,
yeah.
But that's how I see it.
Oh, you mentioned Kasper. Is it Hjulmand's?
Yeah, Hjulmand. Yeah.
You mentioned the previous podcast that this was he's in his second game, wasn't it, in charge? Yeah. And he's released his latest squad now to face. You're playing the Faroe Islands. Is that right?
In a friendly, yeah. In a friendly, okay. We got the Faroe Islands in a friendly, and then we got Iceland, and then you guys in the Nations League after that. He didn't really change that much, but he put on, I would say, 2 or 3 new players. How you like it or not? I mean, we saw new players in Andreas Skov Olsen from Bologna in Italy, who recently scored in his last match, and he is one I'm very much looking forward to see what he can do. He's very quick on the ball and some great technique. And then also Jonas Vind from Copenhagen, who have really been a revelation for Copenhagen, not this season perhaps, but more like the end of the last season. And then new guys in Philip Billing from Bournemouth, I think you know who it is. And then Pione Sisto from former Celta player, now FC Midtjylland. So some quite new players in this new squad.
And I saw you tweeted saying that this is possibly close to the best Danish players available, best squad available.
Yeah, I would say this. I mean, considering a lot of aspects to consider, but I would say considering what kind of football Kasper Hjulmand wants to play and how I would say my perception of how we will play, I would say this is close to his the best squad he can select at the moment. I mean, he's got the best players playing abroad, and then mix in some youngsters and some from the domestic league. So I would say this is a perfect combination in those players. You can also argue that perhaps he should add another player. I mean, there is a player running around in Norway at the moment, in Philip Sinkernagel from Bodø, which is a team that's recently just played almost heads up with AC Milan in the qualification for the Europa League. Right. So I would say there's always you can always say, oh, he should be on, but instead of who? I mean, that's the real argument, right? I mean, you can always add another player, but you can't field 22 players in a side. I mean,
there's only room for 11.
Yeah, that is right. And who don't you select? Who do you sort out of this group? And I mean, that's a luxury problem, of course, considering that you can have injuries and to some major players. But I would say that considering the players you've selected and added for this team, I would say that's pretty much accurate. Well, it's the stronger side, yes.
Yeah. Well, it's good to hear that other supporters have these dilemmas about what players to pick and who to leave out. It's often a conversation here in England. But I mean, will he experiment in the games against the Faroe Islands?
I expect so. I really expect that he will. And you have to take the position into consideration. But I think that he will be trying to see if he can get some momentum going for the next two or the next more important matches, which is Iceland, which is a match we have to win to get something out of this, and then hopefully a result in England if that's even possible. So I think that the Faroe Island, I think he will try to see if he can get some systems working, some of the players. I mean, I think he has to get some confidence into players like Christian Eriksen and hopefully also like Robert Skov, who played left back versus you guys, and also the attackers. I think he tried the Faroe Island match is really convenient to have right now, considering that I think he needs to figure out who his best 11 is and what kind of system he can put in place before the next couple of matches.
Yeah, and with Iceland, do you, as a nation, Denmark, do you class them as big rivals like you would with, say, Sweden and Norway?
It's funny because it's not the first question I've been asked about. I don't see him as a biggest rival like Sweden. Sweden and Norway are our biggest rivals, considering the whole Scandinavia thing and big brother, small brother. Iceland for us is more. Well, now I'm going to say something that's pretty outdated, mate, because I'm going to say like Iceland for us is like playing, another team up there, like the Faroe Islands. But Iceland is a way better team than the Faroe Islands. I would even consider them like being one of the sides that I think we were going to have a trouble against, because as a collective, they are really, really strong. And it still baffles me that I think there's like 500,000 living in Iceland. They can make this team play up against the best in the world and even get a result. That is mind-boggling, and really good talent developing up there, considering the low population. But no, it's not the same as playing Sweden. It's not the same as playing Norway. But I think there will be some kind of rivalry, perhaps more from the Iceland fans or the Iceland team against Denmark, because the whole history of Iceland is that Iceland, way back in the early days, I mean, in 19th century, were actually a part of Denmark. And then they got their independence, and then they, like most of us, got their independence, and then they are a nation up themselves, of course. And I think there could perhaps be some more from the Iceland fans or the Iceland team. Yeah. But I know it's not the same as playing Sweden. It's not the same as playing Norway.
Yeah. Oh, well, there you go. Every day's a school day. I didn't know that Iceland was previously part of Denmark.
That's the early days. That's
yes.
our history. But.
Yeah. I mean, then so moving on to the Wembley game, hopefully it'll be a little bit more exciting than the game in Copenhagen. But how do you see that? Obviously, you'd like to get a result there.
I think that's hoping. I mean, see, considering you're playing at home, I know that fans are not allowed and everything like that, but I would still say you are major favorites or strong favorites for that one. But I see it really coming down to fatigue. The players in England and elsewhere are playing like 2 or 3 matches per week now.
Yes.
Due to the COVID-19 restrictions. So I really see this going down to something like fatigue. I mean, it also baffles me that UEFA and FIFA actually allows people to play like 3 or even 4 matches per week in like the next year or something like that. I mean, that can't be healthy from a physio standpoint. But I think it goes down to fatigue. I think that I've also seen several Premier League managers saying that they hope that the national sides actually spare their players for most of this, as they don't want their players to get injured, of course. I mean, that's a prized position. So I think it goes down to fatigue, but I also think that you have to admit that I think you will play in a more attacking mindset, considering I think that Southgate got a bit of a stick from you guys, considering the more defensive tactics. I think at home, I think you will be more in an attacking mindset, and I think that he will select players that are more attacking minded. So I think that we will have to take our chances on the counter if they come. So that's how I see it.
Okay. Well, we shall wait and see. Yes, hopefully a more exciting game. Looking forward to that one. Claus, as always, thank you very much for your time. You are, of course, on Twitter. It's at Danish Footy, isn't it?
That's correct.
Which is a Twitter account which is predominantly in English as well, isn't it?
Mostly in English. I've also taken the time to do replies for the Danish followers, but mostly in English. That's the whole point of it.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Well, it's been certainly very helpful for me. But thank you very much for your time and all the best going forwards.
Yes, thank you. You too.
Thank you to Claus Ronberg there from Danish Footy. Thank you also to Rich Robertson from the Pale Droid podcast telling us about Wales, and John Chapman from Belgofoot who told us about Belgium. I'll link to all of those on the Three Lions podcast social media pages. Now, it's a busy international window for all the England sides, including the Young Lions. The under-21s face Andorra away on the 7th of October. That's going to be on the England YouTube channel. They then face Turkey at Wolves Molineux on the 13th of October. Both of those are under-21 Euro qualifiers, and all we require is 4 points to secure qualification. Adi Boothroyd has picked some familiar names. Whilst Phil Foden and Mason Greenwood are still eligible, they've not been picked. My own guess is that the FA have agreed that a punishment across the board to be implemented for this window. We'll wait and see what happens next month. The under-20s, managed by Lee Carsley, face Wales at St George's Park on the 13th of October. This is a friendly. And the under-19s face Scotland twice. Again, both at St George's Park on the 8th and 11th of October. Ian Foster is in charge there. And lastly, the under-18s are just having a training session, but that still hasn't stopped Kevin Betsy pulling together 23 players to look at. And, as we mentioned previously, that the Lionesses, they're in action away from home on the 27th of October. They recently got together for a training session, but Phil Neville will announce his squad on the 13th of October. I'm sure come the review podcast, we'll try and catch up with Rich Laverty to talk about that. Now, to finish up, we'll just round up on some England players that have recently moved clubs that you may have missed. Ross Barkley has moved on loan to Aston Villa from Chelsea in what appears to be his own challenge to play in every major city in the country. Just really needs to get to Manchester to complete the set there. On the same day, under-21 player Ademola Lookman moved on loan from German side RB Leipzig to Fulham, and Liverpool's Rhian Brewster, also of the under-21s, has moved to Sheffield United. OK, I think that's enough of me for this episode. So until the next time, look after yourselves, Stay safe and stay subscribed. Cheers.